Did Reddit just expose all of the Hong Kong government? Possibly. Or could there be something more? Of course there's something more. But it's a very strange story because it, reporting on stuff that when you're in alternative media or whatever, you just kind of pick what stories you want to talk about because you care about them more than the mainstream media where they have to kind of cover a wide spread of whatever nonsense that they're talking about. And so to actually see that, oh, well, it's not really that big of a deal, so if they lie about it, whatever. Well, this is what I'm talking about. So Mr. Obvious has a YouTube channel, and he does a lot of pretty controversial topics, but he's absolutely hilarious, and I like his opinion on a lot of things. But due to his controversial nature, even though he has like 70,000 subs, he still is extremely suppressed. And you can see that by the amount of views that he gets. Normally, he only gets about 10,000 views in a day or something, which isn't bad. But I think he puts out hilarious content. So that kind of content, you would think if there was no suppression, he would get more. But funny thing is, a video that he did this morning got 11 or 14,000 views in the first hour. The title of it was Reddit Exposed the Hong Kong Government. And when you're a YouTuber, you kind of know whenever you're talking about like legit, very truthful stuff, and you didn't have to like use code words and all of this stuff, and your video goes essentially more viral than it normally does, there's usually something working in the background toward this. But anyway, the thing is, in this post, let's take a look at his video.
Reddit just exposed the entire Chinese government. Hello everyone, this is Mr. Obvious, bringing you the obvious. And today, on reddit.com, here by a user named Classic. I get it. This has 60,000 upvotes. Protesters entered the building at 9 p.m. Police video released at 9:30 p.m. Video filmed at 5 p.m. And here you can see the proof. This is a police officer, and he forgot to hide his watch. Now, I'm going to explain the entire situation using the comment section, because there's an important comment that's stickied here. A Deadhead says, OP explains here, for those of you that need more context, this is about the Hong Kong protests, more specifically, the protest on July 1st. Today's violent protests were all planned by the police and Hong Kong government. The image proves it, as the video where police justified their actions against protesters was filmed before the protests became violent, which means that the government and police had planned the protests' violent nature by, most likely, sending officers dressed as protesters to make it so. This includes breaking into Leg Co., a Hong Kong central government building, spray painting the HK emblem, and hanging the British colonial flag. And then trashing parts of the government office. So, what really happened here? There was protests in Hong Kong, probably against their tyrannical dystopia that they live in. As you well know, China is ruled by a single party, the Communist Party. Unironically, they control the entire nation. They are heavy on censorship, they censor and oppress their citizens, they lie, they created a social credit system, which is an absolutely nightmarish, dystopian idea. Social credit is, if you're a good boy and you pay your taxes and you listen to the government, you get big boy points. And those points make you seem like a better person. If you do bad things, like have a little bit too much to think, aren't polite, and criticize the government, you get less big boy points. And as such, people will not like you, not give you business, and basically make your life horrible. The best part of this system is that if you're friends with someone with a low score, your score gets lowered. So they are absolutely using this to program and brainwash the entire people. You know, people are always asking me, Mr. Obvious, why do you have such interesting beliefs? Well, it's very simple. I see the threat that people seem to ignore. I see the Chinese government. I see a people and a culture that doesn't care about anything other than their own self-interests. They've fished their oceans dry. They've polluted and destroyed everything. They control their own citizens. They almost behave as a locust, consuming all the resources in one spot and then trying to invade other places to also consume resources. No remorse, no regret. And I've seen enough videos of the conditions in China to have a very, very negative opinion of the country as a whole. My point is, a country like the United States needs to become stronger, needs to annex Canada, needs to expand, needs to get more states, because China will eventually do the same thing. So it's a war between ideas of freedom and ideas of servitude. Who do you want to win the global stage? So Darty here says, very good observation. Classique says, thanks to UKTO25, I was made aware of it in the Hong Kong subreddit. Not sure who first spotted it, but now we know it should be common knowledge amongst the public.
So for anybody that is still a little confused about what's going on here, the people that dropped this post in Reddit is somebody dealing with the CIA, some NGO, or something along those lines, to make it look like it's the Hong Kong government that is actually doing this and make them look bad. And so the thing about these protests and why it's such a big deal is because anybody, what they're trying to pass is anybody dealing with anything can be extradited to China to face prosecution. So even American business owners or business owners from Europe or whatever that own businesses in Hong Kong, and if they do some shady stuff, they won't deal with the Hong Kong jurisdiction system, like they won't have a trial there. They will have to go in front of the Chinese in order to face some justice. So that's why this is such a big deal to business owners. And what's funny is the comment that I left on his video was immediately replied to by this guy right here, who didn't like my post because he says, CIA organizing protest against the communist government of China. What's next? Slaves enjoying their fate? But CIA is pushing propaganda for freedom. Try owning a business and then there, and then the government swoops in, takes 90% of it. I'm sure you would be thrilled. And if you do, resist, and then it's the CIA's fault. So what these people are saying is they obviously own a business, or they are with this propaganda network here. And he is very upset because I just pointed out the truth, and he's siding with the CIA, saying that it's okay for them to push propaganda in these countries as long as it's for the good of the people, is what he's saying. Good of the people in his opinion. And I'm not saying I don't disagree, but what I'm saying is this was immediately responded to by him. And, well, actually there was another one. But anyway, the point is, this video is being watched by the same people that dropped that Reddit post. It's kind of confusing, I guess. And don't be confused, I'm not saying Mr. Obvious is connected to this at all. I'm saying he just happened to pick up the story, and, they're going to pump it up with numbers to make it go viral. Bot accounts and real accounts, all connected. It's a very strange network of propaganda. So it's not the YouTube channel's fault for picking up the story. They wanted this to happen. Okay, so I essentially agree with what he's saying. Like, pretty much the whole thing. Now, where the conundrum comes in is where you know that this is the standard pattern for what our government entities do to mess with other governments, I guess. We use NGOs and these non-profit organization types to spread these protesters and whatever we do, okay? And let me just say, to be honest, I guess I don't really care what they're doing in that communist country of China. I think that they should probably just leave Hong Kong alone. But this is where the thing comes in. Everything that I've talked about Venezuela for the last year, you know, how they lied about this and it shows that this is going on and all of these things, they're essentially doing the same thing there, and they essentially do it in a lot of other countries. And so you could point out these same things going on. It's just I don't agree with it going on in Venezuela. Because they're good people and they're the only sovereign Christian nation still standing. But I'm still going to put out the information. You see, that's where me and the mainstream media are different. I'm still going to put out the information, but I'm going to tell you my opinion about it. So, anyway, what I'm saying is, let's take a look at these groups. The Hong Kong Institute for Human Resource Management, Hong Kong Confederation of Trade Unions, Hong Kong Journalists Association, the Hong Kong, I can't even read my own writing, Labor Party, the Civic Party, and the Democratic Party. All of these groups are what is behind these protesters. Okay, well that sounds legitimate, right? Well, all of these groups are being funded by the National Endowment for Democracy. Who are they? Well, they are an NGO. But let's just take it from the actual people that run the place, or started the place. Okay, so Carl Grisham, the president of the National Endowment for Democracy, said, this is funny, it would be terrible for a Democratic Party group to openly be subsidized by the CIA. You know, we used to do that in the 60s, but that didn't go so well. That's why we have discontinued that, and we've created the National Endowment for Democracy. So we can do the CIA's work overtly. You see? Okay, and then Alan Weinstein, who openly drafted the legislation for this National Endowment for Democracy, he said a lot of what we do today was done covertly 25 years ago by the CIA. So they're doing the CIA's bidding, but they can do it openly because they are a NGO. You see? And so that's exactly what they do in other countries. Like I've been talking about Venezuela and all of these things, and people are like, oh no, it's just a socialist failed country and all of this. No, not really. It's just we sanction them to death, and they're not socialist like you think. They're not a socialist like the Swedens and all of these things. That's where people are very confused, but I'm not going to get into all that. It was just very interesting. And I'm not going to sit here and show, like, this is going to connect with this and this, because honestly, I don't really care. I know that might sound terrible, but I'm sure somebody else that cares about China and wants to expose this can take this over, but I'm sure this video is going to get demonetized just for even talking about it. But I just wanted to show, like, this is, whenever you start to see these patterns, you'll be able to see that in almost all stories, all government situations that's going on and things like that. And then you always probably are going to have some type of bias going on. And, because I don't agree with the Communist Party, I'm not going to sit here and take a whole bunch of time to go try to prove them right, because that's none of my business. I'm not going to prove them right for anything, but so that might have been completely confusing, but I just thought it was funny and very interesting. So, y'all have a wonderful day. Like, share, and subscribe. Don't be angry. I had some crazy comments on that video. People were like, oh my gosh, whatever. I'm like, hold up. I'm not for the other party. I'm just telling you what the truth is. Calm down.